Good morning, everyone, and welcome to TCHC Board's Governance, Communications, and Human Resources Committee meeting. Welcome to the public session of today's hybrid committee meeting, which is taking place in person here at City Hall and on WebEx. My board colleagues are all on WebEx, it appears, but I'm here at City Hall with the wonderful TCHC staff. As usual, we want to begin by acknowledging this wonderful land that we are located on and holding our meeting today. It is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Chippewa, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Toronto is home to a broad diversity of First Peoples, including Inuit, Métis, and First Nations. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, but also Toronto is a place that has an agreement between the Ojibwe and Haudenosaunee confederacies to call the One Belt Wampum, the One Spoon Wampum Belt, which is an agreement to take care of the waters and the lands which surrounds us here in Toronto. I love the image of the dish with one spoon. So it means that there is enough for all of us, and we all take enough for us, realizing that others must also eat and feed and have space to thrive. So whenever I talk about Toronto, it is that agreement between the two confederacies, the Haudenosaunee and Ojibwe, that sticks with me. And what a wonderful image to start today, especially given the political moment that we're in. So today's public session, there is one report brought forward to the GCHRC's approval and two reports brought forward for our information. We have a number of deputations that we will hear when we get to that item on the agenda. But first, let me poll my directors. Having looked at the agenda, welcome, Marcel. Are there any conflicts to declare? Seeing and hearing none. Can I have an approval? Oh, sorry, before I ask for an approval, are there any items that you would like to hold? I know that we're holding number 5 because we have deputations on that, and number 7 because we also have deputations there. Directors, are there any other items you would like to hold? No? Seeing shaking heads and Uba, I know you're driving, so I'm assuming that's a no for you as well. No. Okay. We'll move directly then to, I need an approval of today's public agenda. Thank you, Marcel. Seconder. Thanks, Brian. Moving on to item 5, business arising. We have a deputation.
We do. Catherine Wilkinson has asked to depute on this matter. I believe Ms. Wilkinson's in the meeting.
Yes, she is. Catherine?
Good morning.
Good morning and welcome.
Thank you. I know this was going to be a quick meeting and I won't delay it by a couple of minutes. I just wanted to speak to under item 5, item 1, the new reviewing of the deputation policy. And I note that the target date has been changed from today to July 3rd. And I understand the rationale and why this needs to be done, and I'm certainly not questioning that. But as you know, the legal department has been conducting focus groups and tenant consultations portfolio-wide on the deputations policy. As part of that presentation, it included a page called Next Steps, which identified this meeting today at governance and the board meeting of June 25th, where this report would go forward. Well, we now know from reading the minutes of this meeting that those meeting dates have obviously been canceled. So while this committee is aware the dates have been canceled, the legal department knows the dates have been canceled. Nobody told the tenants, who are the primary stakeholders who participated in these consultations. So this is not our first rodeo in tenant engagement. This is unacceptable, and I think our tenants deserve better. Staff have the tenant contact information as tenants had to register for these consultations. Not telling them there's been a change does not bode well. Toronto Community Housing and in fact the legal department are trying to promote more engagement, more deputations, and given that staff encourage these tenants to attend today's meeting to speak on this item, I would like to suggest, as a courtesy, that management take the initiative to apologize and advise the participants of those consultations that there's been a delay, and perhaps that, we hope to be presenting this report in the next couple of months. And if they're feeling generous, they might add when the report is going forward, should they wish to attend or depute. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, and heard. We appreciate you bringing it to us. We absolutely agree that tenants absolutely should have been informed of the change in dates, and we will pay attention to that moving forward. Taking the privilege to speak on behalf of our senior leadership team.
Agreed.
We always appreciate you flagging these things for us. Thank you. Is Catherine our only deputation here? On that matter. On that matter? Thank you very much, Catherine. Okay, can I have a motion to receive the action item updates as information? Brian, thank you. Marcel, second, thank you. Okay, quick meeting. Moving on to agenda item 7, and we have a number of deputations. Who is our first deputant? Catherine, you're back on. Speaking on council directions requiring board attention.
I am. And so I'm looking at the first item of the tracking list. So it's 21 MM 3519. And this was a member's motion put forward to take action to protect tenants from extreme heat. And this was made in July of 2021. And there's a couple of internal, committees at City Hall that are looking at the feasibility of all apartment buildings to provide air-conditioned units or a cooling room in the buildings. And I note that the status indicates that Toronto Community Housing will be removing this item as no further action has taken place at the city that we're aware of. So first of all, I'd like to suggest that the city moves at their own pace, as we know, so that perhaps not a surprise, we haven't heard back on this item. But also, there's a couple of other things that have come up that coincide on this specific topic. And in 2023, there was a related member's motion to city staff regarding a request to implement an adequate temperature bylaw. And they were to report back to the city in Q1 24. So this bylaw is already in place in Mississauga. There is currently a stakeholder roundtable that I'm aware of that are discussing this extreme heat issues at City Hall. And I'm not sure, but I think we have some staff. So this summer is expected to be even worse than last in terms of extreme heat alerts and smoke from wildfires. Toronto Community Housing buildings do have cooling rooms, some of them, but they're only open on the specific dates that Toronto Public Health declares an extreme heat alert during regular business hours, at most a couple of days a month. Tenants cannot sleep in these rooms. So beyond cooling rooms, Toronto Community Housing doesn't currently have a cooling strategy for its properties. I don't think that Toronto Housing is well prepared to mitigate the risk to its vulnerable tenants due to the extreme heat incidents we're about to face. I believe these important conversations regarding extreme heat should be on our radar, and ask the governance committee to consider directing management to keep this item on our tracking list. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Directors, any question to staff on this?
My question is, whether we've had any consultation with the seniors housing, because obviously there are many, maybe even more vulnerable tenants in the seniors housing, and obviously we should parallel whatever policies are with them.
Sean?
Yeah, thank you, Director, for the question. So I don't have specific information about the work that we're doing with seniors just now, but I will go back and ensure that we're having ongoing conversations with seniors about this. I think that cooling will continue to be an important topic for us going forward. And I also don't want to suggest that by removing it from the City Council tracking, that it is somehow removed from importance for us. It's still a very important topic for us to continue working on and will be an important part of our planning going forward. This is really just an element of how we track the requirements coming out of City Council.
Thank you. Marcel, any questions?
So just a couple of things. One, like out of all the units that are like within TCHC, I know there was a air conditioning exchange thing, but like for the people that didn't have air conditioners and maybe have health issues like breathing, and if they can't handle like the air quality and the heat, is there like any kind of strategy to address their concerns? Because it is going to be, if it is going to be a lot hotter and the air quality is going to be more, a lot more poor than last year, then it could cause a lot of problems for tenants who have health issues.
Yep.
So is there like, is there like a backup plan to like send out some AC units to those tenants?
Nadia?
So through the chair, thank you for the question, Director Charlebois. At this point, I don't believe we are proactively distributing air conditioning units to tenants who didn't have a unit in terms of the exchange program, but I could absolutely take that back and have the discussions with the facilities management team to see if we could do, at the very least, a pilot program to do exactly what you're asking. So if you leave that with us, I can circle back and let you know.
That would be great. Thank you so much, Nadia.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you for that question, Marcel. And thank you again, Catherine. Our next deputant? Okay.
Ms. Hearing, Veronica Hearing, I believe, is the next deputant, and I see Ms. Hearing in the meeting, but unfortunately, it looks like her audio isn't connected. Ms. Hearing, are you able to connect your audio to the meeting so that we can hear you?
Sure.
Mr. Hamad, if you want to depute.
Can someone move the chair, please, so he can come in? Okay, great. Matt, just, yeah. Oh, wow, look at that. You're an important guy.
So I think the mic's on. Perfect.
All right. Time, get comfortable.
Hello, everybody. How are we doing today? Okay, so I'm ready to start.
Please, go ahead.
Okay, through the chair, I'm here today to bring to your attention the critical importance of the Ombudsman Report oversight in ensuring the effective implementation of Toronto Community Housing's policy with regards to individuals with disabilities from a human rights perspective. It is imperative that we uphold the rights and respect residents, including those with disabilities, to access adequate and suitable housing that meets their needs. Toronto Community Housing tenant human rights complaints process is a conflict of interest and not transparent in any way. You can't have the same agency investigating itself. This absolutely is biased. It's a form of hypocrisy and hypocritical for the same organization to investigate itself in complaints, and the complaints are done by the MTM. Toronto Community Housing does not have experienced staff to manage tenant human rights complaints, medical critical priority transfers. TCHC does not have trained staff to deal with these types of situations. Toronto Community Housing needs to hire medical staff, a medical doctor who can evaluate medical critical priority transfers to house people with disabilities correctly, like myself. For instance, I was on a medical critical priority transfer, which was since been closed by Lindsay Vitz, Director of Operation, for housing me incorrectly, as my medical documents state that I have mobility devices and medical problems. Why would anyone offer someone a unit that has stairs? I asked TCHC to remove the stairs to be converted into a ramp. I was told, no, that will not happen. So why would anyone offer me a unit like that? I have mobility devices. My medical documents state that I have problems with strong smells, spices, and smoke, very heavy construction, as I'm diagnosed with cluster headaches and I use oxygen. So why would anybody want to put me back into the same situation with the same problems in another apartment building? Who at Toronto Community Housing is medically certified to say that these units are suitable for my disabilities? Through the chair, I believe this is inexperienced by the staff at Toronto Community Housing who are not trained in the medical field and not experienced on people's human rights. That's why we need a medical professional to examine medical critical priority transfers and a separate organization to investigate tenant human right complaints. This is a very clear violation of my disability human rights being violated. I've reached out to Toronto TCHC tenant human rights complaint process and was denied, saying that they have fulfilled the duty to accommodate me, which is not true. There should be an independent body outside of Toronto Community Housing to investigate tenant human rights complaints and not TCHC itself within its own organizations, as this becomes a conflict of interest and makes the process unfair to the person who's filed the human rights complaint. Again, there needs to be an independent body, someone like the Human Rights of Ontario, which I've already started the process to investigate my human rights complaint in regards to TCHC not fulfilling my medical critical priority transfer. Through the chair, I was also told by the COO, Nadia, that TCHC would be looking for a townhouse unit that would accommodate my disability needs, where there would be no smoke or smells coming into the unit, as that would be a townhouse unit. But instead, I was offered an apartment that had smoke and construction for the next 7 years, 100 feet away from the apartment. So I ask, who is medically certified and qualified to say that this apartment is adequate for my disabilities? Then I'm told we have no idea where to house you. You have unique disabilities. So closing my file because you don't know where to house someone is acceptable? This is a complete human rights violation. I have all the correspondence pertaining to this by Lindsay and the team. Also, I have a recorded conversation with the COO Secretary Janelle Eswick saying that she had spoken to the human rights lawyers at TCHC and was advised under the human rights that TCHC had the duty to keep offering me units until we find the most adequate one that suits my disabilities. But this never happened. I don't know what changed, because all of a sudden I've received an email from Lindsay Vitz, Director of Operations, saying that my file has been closed because I did not accept units that she says that were adequate for my disabilities, but they weren't. She also outlined in the same letter that my critical priority transfer does not have anything about construction and smoke, which is incorrect. I have the critical priority transfer right here that states all of that. May I ask all you guys here, does anybody lose anything at Toronto Community Housing to keep offering me units until we find the one that's most adequate for my disabilities? Through the chair, under my disability human rights, I would like Toronto Community Housing to reopen my medical critical priority transfer application and restart looking for the most appropriate accommodations under the Human Rights Charter. My next steps, if this is not done, will have to go to CTV News and run a story on my disability human rights being violated by Toronto Community Housing, which I don't want to do. I've started the process. Why would anybody want this to happen? I'm pretty well done. I've also need some surgeries that I need to do that I'm not able to do right now because of the apartment that I'm in. And I wish TCHC would be more supportive with people with disabilities and a bit more respectful to what they go through on a daily basis and the pain that they live with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, for coming to share your stories. Directors, any questions to staff? Yes, Marcel?
Is there, I guess this would go to Nadia. Is there like any way to reopen this man's file, and I don't know, maybe relook, get a second look at it, maybe think outside the box a little bit instead of like, maybe look at other options. I don't even know if these are, what I'm going to suggest is even practical, but maybe just look outside of TCHC, maybe doing a head lease or some kind of like thing where TCC would take it, and then there'd be a place where, you know, there'd be better air circulation, better purified air, whatever this gentleman needs, and then start from there, and then maybe look at, as you're building, we're doing those new builds, having units that can be targeted for those kind of disabilities and those health issues. I don't know, but that's all I got.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Marcel. Nadia?
So through the chair, I'm happy to re-engage. I can't get into the specifics of this particular case, but I will say that our goal is to always find adequate units to address the concerns of tenants that apply through the transfer program. If we're unable to do so, I think that's the complexity. And if we can work with external partners, particularly the city, to readdress this, I think I will take it back with Lindsay and the team to figure out if there's any alternative solution here. But absolutely, thank you for the suggestions, Director Charlebois.
Thank you, Nadia. Stay on. Brian?
Yeah, no, I just have a question on the broader issue of how this is done. And I know we had a committee, and I forget the tenant's name, who was quite involved in raising issues with individuals and around disabilities. And I wonder, I believe if that committee's still in working, whether that committee has any recommendations or changes to bring back in terms of policies and process with regard to these kind of issues and in general. So I guess that would be my one question, to make sure that we're doing as much as we possibly can to meet requirements of individuals with a variety of disabilities. And the second question was, I didn't understand why, if the individual who spoke had mobility problems, why a townhouse, which presumably would have stairs in it, would be offered, because that didn't seem to match up with what the further discussion had. So that's a specific question in terms of that. I know we have limited ability to offer units, but that just didn't seem to correlate with the fact that this gentleman had a mobility problem, and stairs would, by the sounds of it, is not something that can be managed by the individual.
So through the chair, thank you for the question, Director Smith. On the first note, I believe you're referring to the RPATH committee and
Yeah.
Kathy Birch. I
Yeah.
have had conversations in a general sense about what TCHC can do to better accommodate tenants with special needs. And so she has given us some suggestions and some thoughts, so they have been engaged. In terms of the second question, I did not make a formal offer of a townhouse unit, and I don't want to get into the specifics. I think there was a general discussion, and happy to take that offline with the team and with the tenants involved. But absolutely, beyond the actual accommodation needs of the tenant, we also have to look at the number of bedrooms and making sure that we're matching it to the need of the household as well. And so that has limitations on the type of units that we'd be able to provide in any given situation. So again, I'm happy to take that offline, and we're continuing to engage with third parties to see if there's a solution here.
And my supplementary question is to Dara. What, if any, response do you have about external input? Is there need? I mean, I don't think we need somebody on a full-time basis, but are there third-party from time to time when needed to bring in to look at the requests that are made?
Especially for medical transfers.
Yeah.
So to the extent that there is a need, I think we have the capacity to bring those folks, those types of experts in when they're required. In the circumstances that give rise to this deputation, I think without getting into the particulars of the matter, there are complex files that we deal with where the restrictions that are identified limit the scope of opportunities that we have within our existing portfolio to accommodate an individual's needs generally, and I think that's the kind of circumstance that we're dealing with in this circumstance. We can seek clarification from the individual generally who's asserting a need for or seeking accommodation as to what their how their disability or other condition informs their accommodation needs and work with them directly, but we can also bring in experts to the extent that we are required to do so. So I mean, I hope that responds to the question. I think that's as close to the response that I can provide.
Yeah, so my question was around the protocol, and so thanks for that question, Brian. I also had a similar question. Uba?
Hi, thank you. And Marcel, thanks for that question. I have the same question. And thank you, Nadia, for agreeing to reopen and looking into the case again. I was wondering if management reach out to the city and see if we can merge the SPP transfer with the crisis transfer and the medical transfer, because that will allow TCHC, and a lot of times, to be fair to TCHC can only offer what they have. If they don't have enough units, they don't have enough units. It is what it is. So if we have an opportunity where the city allows to merge the transfers, then TCHC can look outside TCHC property, like co-op, private non-profit, rent supplement, and have that, options. So did TCHC reach out to the city and ask that? Could that happen? If that didn't happen yet, to see if it's possible to merge the transfers, because I think that will help a lot of tenants.
Thanks for that, Uba. Nad?
So through the chair, sorry, happy to speak to that. We have been working excessively with the city, particularly on this file. We were able to identify a unit that wasn't on the original list, for example, to see if that was adequate. That unit also didn't meet the requirements as the tenant, from the tenant's perspective. And so we're continuing to work with the city. I think what we will do after this meeting is explore external locations. I believe the city was also limited in their ability to provide a location that was smoke-free, scent-free, I believe noise-free, and other things. And so happy to take that back offline, but we have been working closely with the city on this file.
Thank you. Brian, your hand is still up. Is that a legacy hand?
Yeah, well, I have sort of another question.
Go ahead.
Do we have, with other nonprofits that have, do we have the ability to either look at their openings when they're available, and vice versa? Do we have any arrangements with the other nonprofits and co-ops that have units so that tenants might be able to be transferred across, assuming the tenant wishes that, but so that there's a larger group of possible solutions to the issues that may come forward, not just for this tenant, but for other tenants. How difficult is that to work with the other units that are spread across the city with co-ops and nonprofits?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Brian, especially the scattered houses that we recently sold out to the nonprofit sector. Sean wants to weigh in on here.
Yeah, so through the chair, and thanks very much for the question. I think the issue at large is indicative of the fact that we're all challenged, right? So we don't have enough capacity to provide all of the supports that are necessary across the system. That's true within TCHC, but it's also true within other third-party providers as well. And so, there's two parts to the response. In one sense, we can work with supports to provide support within a building, for example. So we do provide supports where they are needed on a sort of a case-by-case basis by bringing in programming and supportive services within a particular building. But when we don't have an acceptable unit that can meet the accommodation needs of someone, that becomes a challenge, right? And so we can't necessarily meet that within our own portfolio. So as Nadia spoke to, we don't have direct relationships with other third-party providers like co-ops, for example, or supportive housing providers. What we do in that case is then we go back and work with the city, because the housing service manager is essentially the placement agency that is responsible for ensuring that people are placed appropriately. And so, we have done some of that, but we can certainly redouble that and go back and re-engage with the city to ensure that we're exploring all potential options. But I will caution everyone that we're not the only ones in this position of lacking the capacity to provide accommodations. So I'm not suggesting that this will be an easy fix, but happy to take this back and re-engage with the city to look at all potential options. And it clearly has to go beyond just TCHC.
Thanks, Sean. Can I speak on that? Sorry, Ahmed. No. About the city part? No. Yeah, Sean will speak with you directly. Sure. Yeah. Uba, did you want to say something? And then we are moving on to the next deputant.
And yes, just to go back to what I was saying earlier, and Nadia answered half of my question pertaining to this particular case. But what I was more looking for, and maybe Sean can also support us in this one, is to please go back to the city and ask to merge the transfers. I know you will get a lot of pushback for different reasons, but the outcome is going to be that great. I guarantee you, because you will have a lot of external units that you can house people when you don't have enough within TCHC. So I just want to ask Nadia and Shane and see what can happen.
It's
not going to hurt to ask, I guess.
Absolutely. So through the chair, on that note, we are conducting a review of our transfer program, as you're aware, because we've interviewed various stakeholders. I do think we can take that back and report back on it through the updated review that we're bringing back to Tenant Services Committee. But definitely noted, and I think there's an opportunity for us to explore other options for, to your point, other transfers. So Lindsay Vietz, Director of Operational Planning, is there, and I know she's taking note of that, and we will absolutely bring that back to the city.
Marcel, last comment.
Yeah, in the meantime, is it possible to maybe consult with this gentleman's medical people just to kind of shore up, if it's even possible, like just to upgrade his unit to a point that where it is a little bit more accessible or acceptable for him? Like maybe adding some extra filters in the air to cut out like the incoming smoke or scents. And the other thing is, maybe if it's possible, maybe reach out to AMFA. Maybe they have some ideas and suggestions. Maybe they're going through the same kind of thing. I do believe we're members of them. That's it. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, and thank you.
So through the chair, thank you for the comments, Director Charlebois, on both notes. So I will work with the team to see if there's any particular accommodations we could do in the unit and in the interim, and absolutely explore other social housing providers to see if there's a best practice or opportunity around a unit. So leave that with us, and I will work with the team to make that happen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you so much for bringing this forward. Absolutely.
I just really want to work with Lindsay, with Nadia, with Sean, with everybody. I don't want to be your enemies. I really want to work with you guys, even in a longer term, to fight for people with disabilities and try to help people with disabilities like myself in these kind of cases. But I really want to work with you guys. I don't want to be against you guys at all and start doing other things. And no, that's not me at the end of the day. I respect each and every one of you guys in the positions that you're in. I respect Nadia a lot. She knows that I do.
thank you for taking the time to come down here and to raise these issues, because as you can see, it brought up larger issues around tenants with disabilities. So we appreciate that. Thank you. Next deputant.
So, Madam Chair, in the interim, I think Ms. Herring has connected her audio to the meeting.
Good. Veronica, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh, very good. You're on.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that TCHC is still very violating the tenants' human rights, especially those with disabilities. They are making people with disabilities do work they can't do. They get harassed. They get harassed when they don't do what they want. We are not capable of doing these things, and we won't do them. It's unreasonable for them to leave disability units not fixed from the time the building was built until now. Even other tenants have moved. When other tenants have moved in, the discrimination against disability people and mistreatment of tenants of TCHC is unreasonable. To ask people with disabilities to walk further than they can. It's unreasonable not to accept their needs, which is being done all around the portfolio. It's unreasonable for covering up disability parking spots and saying they don't acknowledge them. It's unreasonable for give people who are not disabled parking spots, and disabled people have to park elsewhere. Toronto Community Housing is treating tenants like they're nobodies, and people are constantly mistreating the tenants. Many staff ignore the concerns they bring to them, which finds most of the time our concerns are never addressed because the management doesn't want to know about it. They look other ways when they know it's wrong, but don't want to deal with the tenant. Being mistreated is not a nice thing and not very good for you. You need to stop to think about what this person is going through. Walk in their shoes and then tell me you understand, because I'll tell you right now, you don't. Tenants are fed up with all things going on in Toronto Community Housing right now, and that you can't keep telling people to keep hanging on and say and expect change that's never going to come. Many people are feeling very distraught and very upset with the recommendations that weren't followed through. When we went to the Ombudsman's office, gave you recommendations, and even when we had public meetings and everything, it never changed because they canceled the West End, and then when they did reschedule it, the lawyer didn't really address any of our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Directors, comments or questions?
It's Brian.
Yes, Brian.
Again, could we, I'd be really interested in having Kathy Birch and the committee sort of look into these questions and issues, and to see whether they have any recommendations for changes that we may possibly be able to introduce. And so, because I'm not sure how deep we can get into these issues, but I'd be interested in the committee to look at it and to feedback with staff any suggestions or recommendations around possible changes that we could make that would improve some of these issues.
Thank you.
So through the chair, if I can comment on that, happy to bring this back to the chair of RPATH, Kathy Birch. There is an RPATH meeting tomorrow, and I think we could table some of these issues generally at that meeting and figure out some next steps. She will also be meeting now, I believe, monthly with Lindsay and members of her team if needed to address some of the concerns that we're hearing. So that is something that we've done proactively in working with Ms. Birch and the RPATH team. And so we'll continue to do that. But noted, and because the RPATH meeting happens to be tomorrow, this will be one of the topics of discussion if I can get it on the agenda with Kathy later on today.
That's great. I think that's a good way to try and review these issues.
Very good. Dara wants to weigh in here as well, and then Ziva, I'll come to you.
And I just, as the matter is that's on the agenda relates to the Ombudsman's report with respect to recommended changes to our tenant complaint process regarding human rights, I wanted to confirm that we'll be bringing a report to the next cycle of meetings that outlines the actions that we've taken as part of the public agenda in order to respond to those recommendations. But generally speaking, I can advise that we've conducted half a dozen consultation meetings with tenants in a town hall forum across the organization, and as well consulted with the tenant advisory committee in relation to the changes that we're implementing. So there is broad consultation that's currently underway in relation to that work, and that'll continue.
Thank you, Brian. Sorry. Thank you, Dara. We've been calling Dara Brian for the last couple of weeks now. Go ahead, Brian.
Dara, is that also going through Tenant Services Committee as well, feedback through them?
I think, frankly, the process through which we would bring this report is directly to council, or directly to the board in relation to the actions that we're taking, as the board has taken management of this issue generally. If following the next board meeting, the board wants to direct us to go through tenant services for future reports, we're happy to do that. But I think our initial approach in relation to this was that given the importance of the matter to the board, we would bring our report directly to the board.
Okay, thank you. Ziva.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I just have a quick question. Does everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Okay. So I just really want to touch upon the parking situation, because the deputant did mention the fact that they don't have, like, people with disability don't have the capacity to walk far, and that when they do go to management to get accessibility parking, that there's either a limit or there's no parking available. Just wanted to know what exactly is the process for reviewing for parking for tenants. Do we have a process where we review parking every 2 years? Especially if people do need to have disability parking, what does that process look like? And I guess the second question is, why does management not have the capacity to make decisions or give solutions to people who have disabilities with the parking?
Thank you for that. Nadia?
So through the chair, I don't have all the information with me, so I'll probably have to circle back with you on that. What I will say, there is a process. Parking is of a high premium in many of our communities. And so in order to accommodate the request, depending on the request, the number of parking spots, et cetera, it oftentimes requires moving another tenant out of a space. So what I would need to do is take offline with my team to figure out what we do in the case of an accessible parking request. I do believe there is a process. I'm not able to speak to it at this point.
Appreciate that.
So happy to bring a briefing note if required, or circle back directly with you, Director Ferreira.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ziva. Brian? Lower your hand then, please. Dara, who's our next deputant? Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you.
You're up.
Mr. Villa? Oh, yeah. Did you put the timer on? Because I don't see the clock. I'll put it on. So I know that I have 5 minutes of speech. So it's going to be on my laptop. Okay, it's in your laptop? Okay, fantastic. So here we are again on the important topic of the action items that need attention to the board from the City of Toronto. In particular, we're talking today the Ombudsman. I had the opportunity to attend the meeting of the Human Rights Advisory, on Tuesday. And I'm happy to meet the Deputy Ombudsman for Housing. There were so many questions that members of the committee asked the Ombudsman. One of them was in regards to the staffing that you guys have with your human rights complaint process. Do they have knowledge of medical conditions of people before you rush into making decisions? Like my friend who was here explaining to you all his medical conditions, and suddenly he receives a letter saying, oh my God, we closed your file, so thank you and good luck. That's not the way to address it. I'm going to read to you a term from the Ontario Human Rights Commission with regards undue hardship accommodations. If an accommodation is likely to cause significant health and safety risk, this could be considered undue hardship. Employers, housing providers, and safety organizations have an obligation to protect the health and safety of all the employees, clients, and tenants, including people with disabilities. So I happen to have physical and mental disabilities, both. It's clear, it's public, you can Google me. So the Ombudsman is trying very hard to tell you guys that you need to improve your human rights policy. And I believe he made 14 recommendations. Suddenly, Sean Jay, the previous CEO, moved to the city. Tom Hunter went back to the seniors portfolio, and now Sean is here. I wonder if he's going to take ownership of those 12 recommendations made the Ombudsman to make a reality this process. We don't know exactly at this time how long does it take to make a human rights complaint investigation. So I'm here to alert you that since March the 15th, I had tried to request it to have, I wonder if there's anybody in the booth today. Can you display my, yeah, it is on? Okay, thank you. So here is, I had tried to get a human rights accommodation because this is my trike that I need to come to City Hall, to the Police Services Board, to all the committee meetings of the city, and they cannot solve this puzzle. The weather is getting better outside, and I want to ride my trike. I submitted medical letters, support letters from the community, and not yet, nothing has been resolved. So you see my friend in the wheelchair, he has to come here on his, in making difficult journey and explain, and you have a wonderful, wholesome conversation on trying to figure out what is the best solution. I ask you the same question. How can you make an accommodation possible for this person with disabilities to have access to his trike? Remember, in spite of all the desires of get me out of TCHC, you know, I have an N5 and N6 division, but I still have human rights. Don't you forget that. You can swear that tomorrow Miguel is we're gonna kick you out of TCHC, but I still have human rights. So those human rights must be acknowledged and respected. We don't need to take it to court. I have been working with you guys for the last 14 years. For the last 14 years, I have acted in a manner to educate you, to bring new information, to help you out with, to make proper understandings of what's going on in our buildings. And I'm going to talk to you about that quickly about the tenant engagement, tenant advisory committee. It's not working for other people to bring ideas. It's frustrating that we don't have an e-bike policy or bike policy regarding one of the comments made by members of, I think, Karina. We don't have that. So I'm here to help you, but let's work together. As my friend says at the end, let's work together. And I'm here 24 hours. I will be coming back again. Don't worry about that. There's gonna be Miguel forever. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miguel. Will you put folks back on the screen so I can see my colleagues, please? Thank you. Comments or questions? Brian, I'm assuming that's a hand that you just can't figure out how to put down? Thank you, Miguel. It's always a pleasure to see you and hear you.
You're welcome, Chair.
Hopefully, you will have some resolution to your bike issue.
I also, the weather's getting better. I miss my drive.
Absolutely. Do we have another deputant?
We don't have any other registered deputants. I see we have a call-in user. And I'm not
Yeah,
sure who
would the
call-in-
person on the phone please identify themselves? Hello? The person who's joined us by phone?
Is that Jacqueline Yu?
No?
Sorry, I understand that one of the deputants who had registered to speak today determined that she would not be doing that. So I don't believe that that is the final, the deputant who is identified on the registration. At this stage, I don't know who that person is.
So the person on the phone, please identify yourself if you're a tenant or a staff.
We are in public session.
Here are the two options that I have. One of the thought, topics that I have in my head. Is
Ziva, please mute.
And it's about.
Ziva? Ziva? Thank you. We will call in user. If you don't identify yourself, we'll have to remove you from the meeting. Oh, I see. You're in public session. I forgot. Okay. So I think this brings us to the end of our deputations. Thank you to all of our deputants. Board, can I have a motion to receive the report from the Ombudsman's Office, council directions requiring board attention for information? Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Uba. All in favor? Yay. It's carried. Okay. Is there any other business? Oh, we forgot to do that, yes. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda items that were not held? Thank you, Marcel. All in favor? Ziva is seconding. Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Any other business? Burning, something that you must talk about right now. Okay, not seeing any. Can I have a motion to close this public meeting? Thank you, Marcel. Thank you, Ziva. All in favor? Yay. Thank you. Stay on, folks. We're taking a 5-minute break and we will be back. Tenants, thank you for showing up. Staff, stay on, please.